Okay, welcome back and all that good stuff. Today I want to talk about ghosting, but not in the way that a lot of you might think. Ghosting is way too overly debated as a topic, and this particular conversation or whatever, this monologue or whatever you want to call it, it actually has nothing to do with whether it's right or wrong, or when to do it, or when it's justified, or any of that. Like most people have ghosted someone, and most have been ghosted. And if you're part of this current dating community, I'm sure that is nothing new to you. I will say though that if you haven't been ghosted, you're definitely doing something right, or you just look right, basically is what it is. I also feel comfortable in saying that if you've never been ghosted before, I bet my house that you've ghosted someone before. Anyway, for those that have been ghosted, there's always a reason. But in my conversations with people, and this is both men and women, not to pick on one or the other, when they talk about being ghosted, the vast majority of people don't know why they've been ghosted. Most that I've talked to over the years might have ideas as to why. And it's funny because most women that I've spoken to, when making assumptions as to why, would often revert to the tired narrative that the guy in question probably has so many other women that he's dealing with, and yada yada yada, stuff. And while that might very well be true, I don't want to say that it's not and just be like, yeah, you're crazy. It could be true. What makes it a tired narrative is that it's not as prevalent as some of you ladies might think. So that's one thing. And when talking to men, on the other hand, they're a little bit more dismissive of it. And of course, this is generalizing, but still, from my conversations with people, this is what I've done, my unscientific scientific research. But yeah, guys are a little bit more dismissive of it, as if they don't even really want to think about it after it's over, and they just rather move on. Um, Even if they're in pain by being ghosted, they still feel that way. Many guys, even if they don't say the words, they'll have more of a like fuck that bitch type of demeanor. But really, when you get into the details of it, that's just really the hurt talking. And yes, men hurt too, ladies. Now, every now and then, when asked, a ghosted person will look inward and start wondering what they did wrong. S- Sorry, ladies, but most of the inward looking from my conversations with both genders, the inward looking is for more guys than ladies. Guys are funny in that after that initial fuck that bitch, and I keep saying it because I want to sound like guys. I'm a guy. Fuck that bitch attitude. They'll get past that and start to show like the vulnerability that really reflects how they feel about being ghosted. And then from there, that'll cause them to get more introspective about what they might have done wrong, and not just, she's this or she's that, she wasn't shit no way, and all that stuff that guys will say. um and it's not to say that women aren't introspective. I'm just saying that from my conversations, like I was like alluding to earlier, the majority of women that I've spoke to seem to focus more on the guy and and excuse me, and what might have been wrong with the guy, that caused the ghosting, more so than what she might have done that might have caused the guy to ghost her. Either way, whether you're thinking about what was if you're thinking about what was up with the person that ghosted you, or if you're being introspective about how you caused the ghosting, there's a pretty good chance that you're wrong, regardless of which perspective or which strategy or whatever you want to call it that you might take. There's a good chance that you're wrong about that. Oftentimes, um, our thoughts don't serve us well. Oftentimes, when dealing with rejection, which is what ghosting really is. It's just rejecting a person. And when you get ghosted, yeah, it's fair that you would feel rejected because you are being rejected, basically. But oftentimes when ghosting occurs, our minds will take us to one extreme or the other extreme. Not a whole lot of balance. One extreme, when we're being ghosted, will be to be protective of ourselves and to get defensive. Like saying the example I use with guys, when guys are like, fuck that bitch. And that's them being defensive and trying to protect themselves. Or when women will think that a dude was just playing a bunch of women and wasn't really good anyway, that's them trying to protect themselves and being somewhat defensive. Now, these thoughts, they let you off the hook, and it puts the onus on the other person and thus protects our feelings a little bit. And I say just a little bit because it still stings. Nobody likes rejection. And again, that's what ghosting is. But those assumptions, or in the guy's case, when he says, fuck that bitch, I promise I won't keep saying it. Those declarations, or whatever you want to call it, that, or those assumptions or whatever, they aren't really helpful as we move forward to try to find our person in the future. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is to excess or obsess over all the things that you could have done that could have prevented your being ghosted. Um, Whatever you did or what you think you did that turned the other person off and stop calling you or stop returning your calls or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And this isn't always the healthiest approach either, because sometimes the thing or the things that you could have done that could have prevented the ghosting might have been things that you wouldn't have been willing to do in the first place. So you don't know. Either way, of the two extremes, though, the introspective approach is the better approach. And it's better because we can only really address ourselves because we know ourselves. Like, really, when you think about it, why would you waste time speculating about why someone did something when you don't even know their middle name? You know little about this person, but all of a sudden when you get ghosted, you're like an expert on what they were thinking when they stopped calling you or stop returning your calls. But that inward looking approach, while is better than speculating about why they did what they did, it still excuse me, it still needs to be managed. It's like we all need to find a way to be introspective that leads to improvement, but doesn't crush our self-esteem at the same time. Because especially in this day and age, boy, if people can't do anything else, they can beat themselves up over little things. So you have to find that balance. But another thing that kind of surprises me, of the people that I spoke to about this topic, was that most people don't ask or didn't ask the people that ghosted them why they ghosted them, um, or while it was going on, why they were being ghosted. And if you're paying attention while you're in that situation, relationship, whatever you want to call it, well, if you're in a relationship, a committed relationship, then you shouldn't be ghosted. This is only while dating. But if you're paying attention during the course of this dating period, you should know when you're being ghosted. And I mean, come on now. You know what it is to either ghost someone or be ghosted. The phone calls start to slow down. There's distance between the text messages. They used to call you back or respond to your text messages within the hour, and now it might be the next day. They promise to call you back and won't call you back for days, if not a day. Or the thing that I love is when and I've done this too, so I'm not knocking anybody else's hustle. When you tell somebody that you'll call them back, and then the next day you don't call them back that night, and then the next day you text them instead of calling back, saying, "Oh shit, sorry, I missed your text. I mean, I missed your call," or not even acknowledging the fact that you said you were going to return their call at all. So in my years of dating, I've seen it all, done a lot of it. So nothing is surprising. But the point of all of this is that if you're really paying attention, reading the room, you kind of know what's coming. And so that process, when you see it happening, it gives you many opportunities to ask, yo, if you're being ghosted, or no one wants to say, hey, am I being ghosted? But you can say, hey, is something wrong? Um, I noticed that something's changed, and is that the case? We used to be more communicative. We used to speak more often. We used to hang out more often, and now things have changed. Um, you know, but many people don't do that. I've only had two women that I can recall off the top of my head ask me why they were ghosted. And when they asked, I was honest with both. And while I don't remember specifically the reasons why I ghosted them, what's interesting is that when I did answer their question as to why I did it, one took it in stride and thanked me for my honesty and moved on. The other one didn't really take it well and wanted to argue with me about what I saw from her with my own eyes. And that second example or whatever, that's part of the reason that some people aren't really honest when telling people about why they ghosted them, because they want to avoid a fight that might not even come. Again, people speculating, people in their own head. If I'm honest, this is what it will lead to, when oftentimes that's not the case. um Off the top of my head, I can remember asking two women why I was ghosted or whatever. One said it was a chemistry issue, and that really wasn't much help, because since no one can describe what chemistry is, go back to other episodes of this podcast with Reggie. Yes, that Reggie and Nicole, when we talked about chemistry, and they really believe in it but couldn't define what it was. So when you're trying to improve yourself and someone tells you that, well, it's a chemistry issue, that makes it hard to know what to improve. It makes it impossible to know what to improve. And again, you don't really want to get into your head and start assuming, because nothing good comes from that. But basically, what I took it to mean when she told me that, what she really meant, what I think, and this is me speculating after telling you not to speculate. But when someone says it's a chemistry issue, basically it means that there is something specific, or a set of things that are specific, but for fear of hurting my feelings, she didn't want to say what those specifics might have been. And while I guess that's nice, you know, going back to the honesty thing, honesty probably works best, especially when someone's asking you what the problem is. You should tell them. Yeah, yeah, and usually you would hope that the person is asking you because they don't want to make those same mistakes or whatever, assuming that they're actually mistakes in the future. So that was one woman. Didn't really get anything from that. The other woman that I asked interesting is was interesting in that she stopped responding and reaching out. And when I say stop responding, it's not like I was stalking her or anything like that. We went out and I called her. I texted her. She didn't respond, and I called her and she didn't respond. And that's literally all that I'm willing to do. I'm, I've never been accused of stalking anybody. And then when I had given up, like 2 weeks later, she called me to say that she wanted to be upfront with me, to let me know that she wasn't interested, which was weird because I hadn't reached out in weeks. So I don't know. I was on her mind some kind of way for some strange reason. I don't really understand it, but that's what happened. But since she called me and we were on the phone, I went ahead and asked her, like, what was wrong, what happened, or what didn't happen, or whatever. Why wasn't she interested? And we'd only gone out on one lunch date, and she told me that she didn't feel that there was a connection there. I guess that's the same thing as the chemistry excuse, like having a reason but not really wanting to say. um you know? And while I understand someone not saying like, well, I'm just wasn't attracted to you or something like that, why can't we tell a person that based on the conversation that we don't seem compatible, we have different views on things, or or even this might be a little bit stronger, but or if you meet someone online and their pictures don't look like them, I think that's fair to say to a person, specifically because you don't want them to continue down that path and go through that same thing again with another person, or that the person is bigger than they were in the pictures, and it might be a little hurtful, but is a good sign for them to update their pictures, or that they are shorter than what they listed on their actual profile, things like that, which I hear often from women. Like, all of these things might sting, but aren't they better to know than not, especially if a person asks? Like, don't get me wrong. And before I even get into that, let me just say that, yeah, those were two examples. And it's funny because when I talk to women, women talk about what men do and how men have so many women and blah blah blah. But man, these women that I meet, boy, they can tell you some stories about guys that they've ghosted or just like brutally chopped their heads off. And it just like goes back to what I'm always saying when women are like, there are no men out here. And it's like, you say that, but you've rejected like 40 dudes. And they're not all bad dudes. So not all men are bad. So that's the whole thing. Just another attempt to try to dispel that myth that just because someone isn't for you, that doesn't make them bad. And so a collection of those people aren't bad people. But that's a whole nother issue. But like I was saying, don't get me wrong, this isn't my saying that people shouldn't ghost each other. Not saying that, oh my goodness, if you ghost somebody, you're bad and all that stuff. Hey, the opinion is what it is. Specifically, if you don't, one date, I mean, ghosting somebody after one date, it is what it is. I don't think you owe someone a full explanation, but I do think it's fair to give them an answer if they should ask. Now, if you're in a relationship with somebody and somebody stops calling or something like that, yee, that's bad. Um, or even if you've built up equity, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't really, this isn't about having opinion as to whether ghosting is good or bad or any of that stuff. Like I said in the beginning, that's a debate that people have all over different podcasts, and you can go back and listen to those about ghosting and is it evil? Is it worthwhile? Blah, blah, blah. But this is more about how to react to being ghosted, to improve yourself for the next person, as opposed to some people who keep having the same experiences and blaming it on the other gender, when it's like, no, if you had the same experience 10 times, there's something about you that needs to change. It's not the world, it's you. But yeah, but it's, and to that point, it's about improving yourself for the next person, like I just said. This is about the assumptions to being ghosted and how they are rarely right and shouldn't be taken as fact. And this is about being bold enough to ask the person why they ghosted you. Um, you might not get an honest answer. You may not get an answer at all, because when you reach out to them, they might not return that call or whatever. But trust me when I say that whatever answer you get, assuming that you get an answer, is better than whatever wild assumptions that some of us have going on in our heads. So yeah, there's no shame in that. I am truly amazed when I hear people speculating as to why some people of the opposite sex did something. And this is whether it's like in dating or just in life. The bottom line is women suck at one at assuming why a man did what a man did. Conversely, men suck when trying to speculate as to why a woman did what a woman did. So we just need to kind of stop that and be more forthcoming, more forthright about asking. There's no shame in that. Um, and when I hear people speculate about the opposite sex, it's actually kind of hilarious and kind of scary at the same time. The assumptions that people make about other people that they don't even know. So stop speculating about the other person. Start being more introspective without beating yourself up excessively. Because whether you want to accept it or not, when you're being ghosted, it's because of something that you did, regardless of how you try to spin it to make yourself look better, to protect your heart. And that's what a lot of it is, just trying to protect your vulnerability and all of that good stuff. But yeah, if you want to grow and improve and be the perfect partner for the ideal partner for the person that you are meant to be with, you have to take these experiences and truly grow from them, and not grow in a way that makes you more bitter, but grow in a way that, yeah, makes you, makes you really improve as a partner. So, in closing, I just feel like it's, well, let me just say that's that for that. In closing, I want to change the subject. I think I might have mentioned, and I don't even remember, but I think I did. I think I mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Robert De Niro is 79 years old. Al Pacino is 83 years old. They're both new fathers. Now, Robert De Niro, the mother of his kid, is 46 years old. And in her defense, she was married to him back in the 70s and into the 80s. So they have a history. They could have reconnected or something like that, and blah, blah, blah. And the age gap, while it is big, but they have a history that could allow for her to look past that age gap and all of that wrinkly, sagging skin and all that stuff, and actually see him as sexually attractive, maybe. But so yeah, that's Robert De Niro's case. 79, got with a 46-year-old, his ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. Hold up a second. Hold up a second. Maybe my research was wrong on that, because if she's 46 now, they couldn't have been married in the 70s. Huh. Yeah, that wouldn't be right. That's because it's not right. Yeah. Hold on. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, I need to dig a little bit more into that, which probably means that I probably won't dig more into that. Either way, regardless of how old the woman was or what the dynamic was, um, um, hold on a second. Because I don't want to let this go. Um, okay. The mother of his kid is Tiffany Chen, and Tiffany Chen says is around 45. So forget what I said about it being the ex-wife and they reconnected or something like that. 45-year-old girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. Al Pacino's 83 years old. And I do have this right. Al Pacino's girlfriend is 29. So at least Tiffany is closer in age, even though that age is like 38 years difference. Maybe if you are 45, you are a little bit more tolerable of saggy skin and such that a 79-year-old might have. Now, if you're 29 years old, though, you are not sexually attracted to an 83-year-old man. I just find that hard to believe, but I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't know. But I'm assuming that she got on top of him. I can't see her looking up at him as he's on top of her. I, I'm I'm thinking about this way too much, and I do think I talked about this because I think I said that the last time that I brought this up. Sorry, sometimes these podcasts run together, especially when talking about these current event type deals. But either way, I just found it fascinating, and it's interesting because 83 and 79, that's beyond the demographic of this podcast. But to the mothers of the children, I guess that they do fit, especially the 45-year-old. Anyway, I'm done with this. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, blah, 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 and all that stuff. And yeah, Reggie, you want to say something to the people? Come say something to the people. Say hi. Um, Reggie back with that social anxiety. All right. Bye.